Now, Serbian is not my mother tongue, though it is in fact my mother's tongue. Like, that sounds rather weird. I should probably rephrase that. Now, my mother is of mixed Russian and Serbian blood. Novi Sad on father's side, and Sarajevo on her mother's side there. Bosnian Serbs, of course. Not going to talk about the 90s today, we've made sure of that. I myself was raised on many a fairy tale from these lands. My grandmother and my mother, of course, made sure to tell me lots of horrifying and terrible little tales from the old country. So I purchased a book the other day called Serbian Fairy Tales, with a general editor as Jack Jackson. A very original name. Definitely not made up. I mean, unless, like, maybe his name was Joko Jokovic. I mean, that would be a very weird name. That'd be a very strange name. Introduction by Margaret H. Bissinger. Bissinger. That's a hell of a last name. Alright then, I suppose we should get into it. These will be in no particular order, you understand. The book has them all, category and such, but I'll just be doing this in a random sort of shoot shit at the wall and see what fits sort of mentality to this reading. Here we are. I found a good one, and it's right racist as well, proper with Serbian tradition. The Gypsies and the Nobleman. A Serbian folktale. Once, a very rich and powerful nobleman was on the day driving through his vast estates. From afar, Ford Sagan, that is a gypsy, noted that he was alone and greedily coveting his fine carriage horses, determined to deprive him of them. As the carriage approached, they rushed onto the road, respectfully took off their caps, knelt before him, and one of them began to speak, saying, "Oh, how happy we are to have the opportunity of manifesting to you, O most gracious Lord, Gospode, our deep gratitude for the noble deeds and many acts of kindness with which your late and generous father used to overwhelm us. As we have no valuable presents to offer you, please, Barzalsta, Gospode, allow us to harness ourselves to your carriage and draw you home ourselves." The haughty nobleman, proud of his father's good deeds, was pleased to assent to this unusual form of courtesy. The two gypsies thereupon detached the horses and harnessed themselves to the carriage, and drew it for some distance. Suddenly, however, they cut themselves loose, and ran back to the two other rascals, who by this time had got clear away with the other two horses. Nice. That's literally the end. Like, that's the... Wow, okay, that was wonderful. So I don't hate gypsies, by the way. In fact, I rather like them. The next story we have is called Living for a Wager. This is a trench officer recording. All trench officer recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, subscribe to Trench Officer, the YouTube channel.com.org. Anyway, LibriVox references aside, Living Wager, a Serbian fairy tale. One day, a father sent his boy to the mill with corn to be ground. At that moment of his departure, he warned him not to grind it in any mill where he should happen upon a beardless man. When the boy came to a mill, he was therefore disappointed to find that the miller had been beardless. God bless you, beardless. So, God bless you, Beardless. The man's name is just now Beardless. Okay, I'm just imagining Miller Peshek from Kingdom Come Deliverance. God bless you, Beardless, saluted the boy. May God help you, returned the miller. May I grind my corn here? Asked the boy. Yes, "Why not?" responded the beardless one. "My corn will soon be ground, and you could then grind yours as long as you well please." But the boy, remembering his father's warning, left this mill, and went to find another up upon the brook. But Beardless took some grain, and hurrying by a shorter way, reached the second mill first, and put some of his corn there to be ground. When the boy had arrived and saw that the miller was again a beardless man, he hastened to find a third mill, but again Beardless, hurried by a short-cut, reached it before the boy. He did the same at a fourth mill, so that the boy concluded that all the millers were beardless. He therefore put down his sack, and when the corn of Beardless was on the ground, he took his turn at the mill. When all his grain had been ground, Beardless proposed something. "Listen, my boy, let us make a loaf of all your flour." The boy had not forgotten his father's injunction to have nothing to do with beardless millers, but as he saw no way out of it, he accepted the proposal. So Beardless now took all of the flour, mixed it with water which the boy had brought him, and thus had made a very large loaf. Then they fired up the oven and baked it, which, when finished, they placed against the wall. The miller then proposed, "Listen, my boy, if we were to now divide the loaf between us, there would be little enough to feed us both. Let us therefore tell each other stories, and whoever tells the greatest lie shall have the loaf all for himself." The boy reflected a little, and seeing no way of helping himself, said, "Very well, but you must begin." Also, I'm using my own voice for the boy, but I'm realizing the boy should probably sound like Henry of Skalitz. Like, I feel like since the miller is Peshek, surely the boy would be Henry. "Very well, but you must begin," the boy said. Beardless told various tales till he got tired. Then the boy said, "Ah, my dear Beardless, it's a pity, for you do not know any more than what you've said, and what you've said is really, well, nothing. Only listen, and I shall tell you now the real truth." Good God, I'm never going to do a Bristol accent again, that was terrible. Now, part 2 of this fairy tale is the boy's story. If you want to see the boy's story, let me know in the comments. Now we're going to have a little talk about a thing called burnout. Good God, good sirs, life is a burden. Hardly a burden, it's a blessing, don't get me wrong, but damn, is it a blessing that must be endured? I think a wise man said something similar at some point, but I can't quite recall. The hell would I know about wise men? Anyway, a problem has occurred in my life, which is that of financial ruin. I've been facing it my entire life in one way or another. Now, good sirs, I'm not going to advertise anything to you. Or is it advertise? I can't quite recall. I'm not going to try to sell you a Patreon. I'm just going to give an explanation as to why my videos come at such a weird pace. You see, work and depression are two things that are not good for the soul. And I believe creativity, when it comes from a place of misery, it can be very beautiful. Do not get me wrong. When you are miserable, it is very hard to be creative. At least I have found. Though I will say there are various times in my life in which I have done great things as a result of my own depression. I reached my PR in bench pressing out of depression. I began my entire fascination with literature out of depression, as well as I began writing due to depression, but this is a different form of depression. It leads me to want to do nothing more but to die, to, how you say, not to rise from it, but to just sit there and wait for myself to be dead. Why, I had inkling the other day, right before going to work, that I would just wake up and sit there the entire time in bed and wait to die of something or other. Then I snapped myself out of it nonetheless, but man, good sir, depression is no joke. Of course, it wasn't until I reminded myself of the words of Marcus Aurelius I was able to get myself out of bed this morning. That's a joke, by the way. Marcus Aurelius very rarely works for me to wake up out of bed when I think of his words. I say, oh, but he was an emperor, he had a duty, and what am I but a lowly fool? In truth, his words are very meaningful. It's simply that truly am a fool. I want to continue creating and making, but every time I sit down to do it, I think, oh, what kind of idiot am I to do this? Or I just go straight back to hating myself. Never all of you lovely people, and the fact that you actually enjoy this content. It's a heartbreaking process, really. Stagnation, I would call it, but I suppose it could be a form of stagnation. I mean, depression is a very stagnant thing. However, I would argue it's more a form of degeneration, but that isn't to say I'm engaging in debauchery. I am simply degenerating. I'm becoming more and more depressed. It's devilishly odd, as ever since converting to Christianity, I have not been depressed at all. I've actually been a rather cheerful sort. It's been devilishly strange, devilishly even more so, that I would argue I'm doing better in life now than I was when my depression first started. So I don't know what's keeping me with this strange feeling of emptiness and sadness. I truly cannot find the source of it. It's odd. It's made me not any longer wish to engage in the activities which previously brought me joy. Such things as writing or cooking, for example. I love to cook, believe it or not. I made those ridiculous videos, but I am indeed, I wouldn't toot my own horn here, but I've been highly praised. I love following old recipes and such, and cooking is just so fun. But I've lost the will to do it. Oddly enough, also I've lost the will to study Latin or read any of the classics. Do you know, for example, I have been reading nothing but legal documents for the past 3 months. It's been downright miserable. I hasten to say, if I continue... Hesitant? I'm hesitant to say... I can't quite recall. I'm hesitant to say, if I continue on this terrible spiral of depression, I may never finish The Unholy Hollow. Do you know that, for example... I keep saying, do you know? What is wrong with me? I started writing another project to take a small break from The Unholy Hollow. It has been a month since I did it. I should have been able to finish it in that whole month. But life continues to vomit down my eiderdown. Now, what I said before about only having read legal documents that I have to read, I will say this. I have been reading some other leisure content. There is a wealth of good shit on Wikipedia that I've been reading. And to say the least, that so-called good shit has just been randomness from the Serbian Hungarians from the 15th century to at around about the 14th century. Really, how Serbia was a vassal of both Hungary and the Ottomans and that sort of thing. Stefan Lazarevic, Wolf the Fiery Dragon, Siege of Belgrade, that sort of thing. It's prompted me on this odd... Strangely enough, it's prompted me on an odd thing to take another look back at, medieval Serbia and Serbian stuff. Of course, I've always, loved Serbia. I've been, a big fan. Of course, freaking mother's a Serb. Obviously, I'm going to love Serbia. But I never really cared to look deeply into the folklore or into its medieval glory, as I've seen so far. And damn, it's quite something. Now, of course, I'm far from a nationalist, obviously. That would be most unbecoming. I will say this, however. I think it is a damn travesty that there is not enough content set in Eastern Europe, particularly during the Middle Ages. I mean, look at this, right? We have to hear everything about how an Englishman or a Frenchman or an American or an Irishman or a Scotsman shat. How they shit, how they brush their teeth. How King Richard did this, how King Duncan did that, how Robert the Bruce was this. Man, am I sick of it. Bloody hell. And I love English and Scottish, Irish, Welsh, French history. Believe it or not, I do love French history. But man, it's just a treasure trove at this point. It's everywhere. I mean, I don't think treasure trove is fitting for that argument. Or, argument? God, what am I on about? I'm losing my own ability to speak English. I haven't even spoken English, Russian, Serbian, or even German in a very long time. You know, I kind of like lost the ability to speak German and Serbian the older I got. You know, my family wanted us to learn German. We were kids, God only knows why. Russian always, and Serbian alongside it. And I've just like been losing that since around the time I turned, I want to say 15, maybe 16. Language slowly, like you lose all need for it when it's just English, you know? Only time I speak German now is if I'm playing the game. But I do suppose we will be ending this video there of my terrible and pathetic excuse, truly a pathetic excuse for why it's been. I've come to a conclusion, though. Maybe not a conclusion, maybe it's just so much of a hypothesis. Okay, it just hit me while I was talking about closing the video. Ever since getting hit on the head, I've been rather miserable. I got my skull cracked a while ago. And, it's odd. I haven't thought about it much, but I feel like I haven't had as much of a vivid imagination since then. Of course, yeah, that's a crappy excuse. If anything, it's a horrible excuse. Dutch Vanderland excuse, you know what I mean? You know, he's the one who hits his head on, oh, I'm seeing too, Arthur. You know, and uses that as an excuse for how terrible Guama is. But I must admit there's some credence to it. Credence. Hey. I'll be thinking about this a lot more. But I do think it's just burnout. Now, speaking on the topic of burnout, I wanted to make more Trench Crusade videos, right? And God bless that Irish fellow for continuing to, for making them, as my channel's basically dead. But the thing is, I cannot, as it stands currently, cover Trench Crusade. I just don't, as much as I love it and I want to see it well, people have made it so damned political. Man, like, what the hell, you know? Call it, what was it, a Chud Crusade, and then the other one was Woke Crusade. I will be 100% honest with you, I didn't know what the word Chud meant until a few years ago, when I heard it on a comment of one of my videos. But you haven't seen the last of Brother Savovich in the Witch Hunter Augustine, I assure you. I would say I just need more time to really get back into it, but honestly, man, I've taken up so much of your people's time. You're good viewers too. Obviously, a lot of you are very loyal chaps and chapettes. It's a great shame that I'm such a terrible content creator that I cannot provide for you in a way that you wish to see. Of course, simple answer would just be make the content. Then it comes down to, you know, I come home, I'm so miserable, I sit down and I'm like, ugh, why make a video? Why write anything? Who's gonna read it anyway? And I just kind of get depressed and fall asleep. Yeah, take any advice from me. Don't get depressed, kids.